Naruto Shippuden, a pillar of the anime and manga community, and also one of the illustrious big three of legend. But, is it mid, or is it a masterpiece? That's what we will find out today as we delve deep into the analysis of one of the greatest, or maybe the worst, anime to have ever existed. But, without further ado, I want to get some house cleaning things done real quick, so if you don't want to be about that, just skip to this point in the video. That's where the review starts. If you're completely fine with the housekeeping stuff, then hey, join me for the ride. So, first list on the housekeeping, alright? Thank you so much for 100 subs. It's really touching to, start to grow my channel and my community, and I can only hope that everybody who is tuning into these videos is enjoying it and having a wonderful discussion of different takes in the comments below, and I thank you so much. And as we continue to grow, our influence will soon be able to take over all of the anime reviewing tube, as we are the right ones and everyone else is the wrong ones, obviously, because I have never been wrong in my life. That's just a fact of nature. Now, as for the other thing I want to go over, this review will be different from the ones I've done before, even though it is just Naruto Shippuden. I believe that I couldn't really have the beginning category in this one, considering it just doesn't really have a beginning, it's more of a continuation. So therefore, I decided to allocate 1 point each to story, world building, and ending to make them a little bit more influential within a continuing series. However, if anybody has a better idea, a new category that they think should be put in for a continuing series, feel free to let me know. I really do enjoy hearing critiques in the comments below because it's how I help to change my reviewing process in multiple different ways. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so we're gonna start off with, characters, which is out of 6, right? You got 2 for the main character, 2 for the antagonist, and 2 for the side characters, right? So for the main character, Naruto, do I like him? Do I love him? Do I hate him? Right? All questions we probably pondered at some point on the Kiss, Marry, Kill, page of whatever that is, But anyways, I think he's still a great main character. I think he still has the lovable attitude, the determination to follow his dreams, all the things you really need in a shonen protagonist, because if they weren't determined, then what are we there really watching for with their dream? However, I will say a big thing that I think they kind of botched with his character in this series is what I like to call the Bleach effect, which, for those of you who don't know, in Bleach, Ichigo, the main character, eventually gets to a point where he becomes less of a everyday guy and more of, I have every bloodline trait ever and all of their powers, and that just makes me insanely busted, right? That's kind of what I feel like happens to Naruto, not with stuff like the Bidross and Shuriken or Sage Mode. I just believe he kind of gets to the point where his underdog factor is non-existent, especially when stuff like the Six Paths mode comes, and it's just kind of like, did we really need this? I understand we need it because Sage Mode isn't strong enough, but I don't know, it felt like he got gifted that power more often than him actually, fighting for it, and they're having, emotional story beats connected to the other ones. So, I didn't quite like that. But I will say, overall, I still believe he is a 2 out of 2 for the main character. So, now that we've got that out of the way, let's move on to antagonists, which I'm sure you guys are so excited to hear about antagonists, right? We've got a lot. You could take the Akatsuki, you could take Kabuto, you could take Black Zetsu, you could take Kaguya, you could take Madara. There's quite a lot of them. There's also Danzo, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if anybody else felt this way. I never understood what Danzo was about. I know it's a whole thing with, the Uchiha clan, I think, because Sasuke eventually kills him, but, really? I just never really cared about Danzo's whole bit. So, I think the major important antagonists you have are going to be the Akatsuki members. You have Itachi specifically for Sasuke's story, and you have Pain specifically for Naruto's, right? Those are very important. And then you have stuff like Madara at the end, Kaguya, so we'll go ahead and start going. I believe that the Akatsuki members are maybe done the most dirty in the series, alright? I'm not even gonna cap. So, I think that from concept-wise, they are so cool, and they elevated, anime group villains to a level that gets seen today a lot because everybody has their villain squad nowadays in popular shonen, and I think that's great because freaking the Akatsuki were awesome. They all had neat designs, they were all cool, they all had pretty awesome motives across the board for the most part, except for Black Zetsu. But something I do want to take note on is the fact that I believe only half of them maybe get a satisfying defeat. Because what I think the author ran into was the problem that they're all so ridiculously powerful that he just needed to make up ways to kill them off in the series that sometimes didn't make sense, sometimes did. And one of my things that I think about every time, you know, I bring up this example is how Kasame just, like, randomly dies in just, like, the most odd way. Like, he ends up fighting, like, I believe it's Might Guy and maybe Rock Lee's there, but he lost his sword because it likes chakra or something, and so Killer Bee got it or whatever. And then Kasame just gets absolutely bodied despite him being like the no-tailed beast or whatever. And I was just like, for your title and for how hype you were within the series, for you to just randomly get defeated by Might Guy, granted he is strong, but still, it just felt a little bit disingenuous to me. I thought it was a little bit clunky. Another one that I think is super clunky is Kakuzu, and let's get into the Kakuzu argument. Who is ready? So I don't care about Hidan. I think Hidan is done beautifully in this fight, but let's look at the other side, alright? Kakuzu is a man who has about like 5 different hearts, I guess, if you include himself, and each of them has a different chakra power, right? And he can also share senses with these things to make it so he is virtually unable to be snuck up upon, right? Somehow, in the beginning of the fight, Kakashi gets immediately behind him and, like, stabs one of the hearts, right? And I was pretty upset about this because it just makes no sense, but, you know, maybe we can say that Kakashi's just that good, right? Maybe he's just that broken. And then, you know, as they're fighting, Kakuzu is absolutely bodying the Hidden Leaf team that's going after him, right? To avenge their sensei and stuff. But, like, he's absolutely bodying them. And so then, he gets the bright idea when Naruto shows up, or maybe Naruto hasn't showed up, but he gets the bright idea that he needs to put all of his goddamn hearts into the same body, so that when Naruto throws the Rasen Shuriken, this is prior to Sage Mode also, he just one-shots him. He just one-shots Kakuzu, and I'm sitting there like, what the actual heck? Because if you're thinking about it from a smart, calculative point of view, which is what Kakuzu is, if I'm even saying his name right, he should just keep his hearts separate, because even if he, like, gets killed, right, he still has the other hearts to keep him alive, right? But then he's like, oh yes, I will become big and powerful ultimate guy, and then get one-shot by their big and ultimate powerful guy. And it just makes no sense for him, like the smart one, to do that. Even though he is obsessed with money, but obsession with money had nothing to do with at that point. So I think that's really sucks. Now I'm going to talk about some good stuff, and for those of you who are wondering, yes, I'm not mentioning Kaguya and Black Zetsu yet. I want to get to that later. So I believe Itachi's done wonderfully well. I think the whole mystery behind the Uchiha clan is very interesting. I like that. I think Itachi just kind of handing Sasuke the W with the forehead thing that he did all the time to him is very nice. I like that. I think it's beautifully well done, even though Sasuke gets handed every W he gets within the series. Neither here nor there. As for Pain, I think the Pain arc is beautiful. I think he's a wonderful antagonist for Naruto because he killed Jiraiya, and he also essentially just, you know, represents a world of peace, which is kind of what Naruto is hoping to take on, but in a very different way. And so I think it's very interesting for those two characters to kind of clash, both values and also their grievances with Jiraiya being dead, even though Pain killed, you know, Jiraiya. It was a whole thing. Anyways, I'm not going to get into Black Zetsu and Kaguya yet. I'm going to save that for the ending category. So overall, I believe the antagonists are a super 1 out of 2. It's just what I think. Now, as for these side characters are a mixed bag, obviously. You have great ones like Kakashi. You have great ones like... I honestly do kind of like Killer Bee. I don't know the consensus on Killer Bee, but I thought he was funny. And then I enjoyed Jiraiya, stuff of that nature, right? Some ones I didn't enjoy. I didn't enjoy how they just sidelined the majority of Kid Naruto's cast. Like, Rock Lee does nothing. Neji essentially does nothing until he dies. Hinata does more nothing than she's done ever. And so I just think, you know, side characters... You have a few good ones, like I named at the beginning, but there are so many side characters within the series that don't get any conversation time, any amount of development, because Naruto is such a dominant main character and always hogging the spotlight. Granted, that is how the series is playing out, for better or for worse. I just really don't like that, and I think the character writing is suffering so much in Naruto Shippuden. It is absolutely insane. So therefore, I'm going to give side characters the much deserved, in my mind, 0 out of 2. Because I don't think there's that much. Although I do enjoy Sasuke's side plot I don't think it's enough to save the travesty of just having the majority of your class, or the majority of your characters be do-nothing cardboard cutouts. Anyways, we move on. So that means that we got a classic 3 out of 6 for the characters. Not a great start, but we're going to get into story, right? So the beginning of Naruto Shippuden, we'll just talk about that for a bit. I really liked it. I think it kind of ends the beginning right after they save Gaara and the whole sorcery thing gets done. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think it was great. It was one of the only times Sakura has been a real character in the series, so we'd love to see that. But I do also think that after the beginning, you enter the rocky road, like I said, with Kakuzu, where some of you may be wondering in the story section, why am I talking about battles so much? This is a battle shonen, so the battles represent much more than just a fight. They represent motives clashing, huge character beats like Shikamaru and Hidan, where he's trying to avenge his sensei, stuff like that. They represent these huge climactic moments for the characters, so they have to be very well done, and that's how I think is the easiest way to analyze battle shonens. Not the only way. There's definitely important character discussion to be had. That's why I gave side characters a 0 too, because I don't really think they do anything. Although Shikamaru is a great example of a good side character within Naruto Shippuden. Although, that being said, I do think the story starts to struggle, and I think it brings it all the way freaking back with God dang Pain. That arc is peak. I don't care what anybody says. That arc is so good. I love it to pieces because it represents so much of what the story has been getting at, and Pain is quite literally the perfect antagonist for Naruto in every single, way of the word. Because some would say, oh, Madara is the main antagonist of whatever. I wish it was Pain, because he is so much more well-written. Not saying Madara isn't, but Madara is more about, how flashy his powers are. But god dang, Pain is just so deep character writing. He has, especially, very complex views on loss, redemption, what peace means for the world, right? He believes it's through force, by destroying everything and trying to build it back up, right? Because then they will all know pain, right? So good. Alright. So I believe that the Pain arc definitely saves Naruto Shippuden from a majority of its things. But then let's get into what I think is stupid, right? Number one, I think Kurama just suddenly befriending Naruto after he drops the gates on him. Kind of weird, alright? I'm gonna be honest. I think Kakashi kind of just getting sidelined despite how awesome and cool he is, and then he gets glazed by every opponent despite him essentially doing nothing. They're like, oh, I've heard of you, Kakashi, and then he gets freaking either bodied or he wins, but it just never feels like an actual win. It's odd, but I still love Kakashi. But I think he's an interesting point. And another thing I want to bring up is Kabuto's side plot. I really don't like Kabuto's side plot. I think he gets to the point where reanimating dead characters within a series is much like time travel, right? You don't want to do it all that often because it's a very slippery slope. It starts to add in problems of character writing, right? Because they're being given a second chance. And it also adds in just repeat story beats where you're seeing the same fight over and over, which to me is just padding time for what I believe really needed the development, which is the Great Ninja War arc. Right? I believe that this needed so much more fleshing out. I think anybody who watched Naruto Shippuden can understand that because the countries don't really have all that much build up to them, and so I think it really suffers when you have all these countries coming together. Granted, the Hidden Sand Village was pretty well set up, but stuff like the Hidden Rain, which I really wanted to see because Pain was on top of it, never really gets set up, although I don't think they're a participant in the Great Ninja War, if I'm wrong. But I just think you need to help the audience understand, one, how strong Madara is more than you already did, because, I mean, he was foreshadowed, but I would appreciate a little bit more complexity in his character rather than just foreshadowing his power for the most part. And then also, I believe that the entire bit with Kaguya and Black Zetsu needed to be foreshadowed way more, because I know for a fact that you just did that because you wanted to do the Boruto sequel. And you know what? That's fine. That's fine, right? I'm all for it. If you want to make Boruto hype and whatever, but don't ruin Naruto's story for it. You can't tell me it was planned. It was the most plot pull I've ever seen in my life, was the Kaguya Black Zetsu. Because Might Guy does his whole, Night Guy thing, right? and completely blows off half of Madara's like entire side. And then for some reason Black Zetsu just like sneaks up, and here I'll draw it for you guys because I'm going to use the thing. So like imagine if the one here, this is Z for Zetsu, and then this is the one with the hair, right? I don't think he really had hair in that moment, but this one is Madara, and then Zetsu kind of does one of these moves on it. And I don't know how this move worked when the night guy happened and it blew off half of his body and he still regenerated. So there's a lot you could take from that that's bad, and so I think that really contracts from the story because the power scaling gets to such a point where the character interaction suffers and the world building suffers because we keep trying to make that bigger threat, right? It's the age-old shonen problem. So I believe the story gets a 2 out of 5. I think you really botched it. That's just my opinion. Now, we are going to get into world building, and so I want to talk about the fact that nothing is really set up for the Great Ninja War arc. And some of you may be like, oh, but all this stuff beforehand is well thought out. Yes and no. I think technology is funny within Naruto because there's a bunch of different references, and I'll put one up on screen, where they show that they have like technology, like let's say walkie-talkies or something, and then they do the mind jutsu to like communicate with everybody on the battlefield, which I think is just a little bit of a world building oversight. Also, the fact that a majority of the nations that we've had since Naruto never really got developed, even though you had that insane amount of runtime and you never did anything with it. A little bit sucky. A majority of the Akatsuki members come from different nations. You could have easily done something with that to interconnect the world. You could have easily done something more with the Jinchuriki. Granted, I love their tail beasts. I think they're fascinating, but my god, if you did not just kill off most of them for no reason at all, you could have played around with that more. Pain's whole city, the Hidden Rain Village or whatever it's called, god dang, that place looked cool. I loved when he sat on the tongue statue or whatever, but where did it go? It just never went anywhere, and I was really upset about that. And so I believe that world building suffers due to just a lack of focusing on the right thing, right? I believe we focus too much on power, and we let world building suffer and characters suffer, which, when those two things are pretty rough, the story drops to the point where it's a 2 out of 5 in my opinion. And I believe the world building was just non-existent for the most part. Granted, you did have some neat stuff like mostly you got to see the world when Sasuke would go through it on his weird side arc, because you get to visit a little bit more with the concepts. And so for that reason alone, I will give it the hearty 2 out of 5, because I do think there were ways you could have done it better. I just think, you know, you kind of messed it up just the teensiest bit. Now, I will also say we're going to get to the beginning, or the ending, and this is where I'm really going to start talking about Kaguya and Black Zetsu. And my god, if it's just not the easiest way to ruin your series maybe ever, right? Madara is cool, and for Madara being cool and a great end, and he was foreshadowed and everything, I'm going to give it 1 point for Madara because out of respect, if nothing else. However, I believe that respect for Madara is not enough, and Kaguya being the end villain and the whole infinite Tsukuyomi thing just doesn't really make sense, because we've already had these repeat plot points before with like Pain. And Madara is already kind of repeating a plot point, but it's also the main one of like a world of peace. How do you establish it, right? And I just think it's not good to keep killing off your villains in an unsatisfying way and then being like, here's the bigger threat, right? Because the bigger threat is neat if you can pull it off, but most of the time what you're doing is you're just speeding up character arcs to the point where the audience kind of gets lost in the sauce, so to speak, right? And we don't want to be lost in the sauce. We want to be, you know, eating the sauce with chicken tenders. Am I right or am I right? But I think Naruto just kind of had power scaling issues, and instead of trying to treat the problem by either making Madara the end or Pain the end, I think either one is acceptable, and you kind of like lower the power level of the series as a whole. They didn't. And they just let it kind of spiral into this mess, which really hurt a lot of aspects of the series. and therefore I believe the ending, which I'm sure I'm right on this because there's nobody who disagrees with me. I believe the ending is a 1 out of 4. I just think you can't tell me that was 1, planned, or 2, acceptable for you to do to the characters that the audience cared so much about, that everybody was so excited to see, and I just believe it is a very rough ending and not something that should really be given into any more thought. However, you know, I will give 1 bonus point over, right? And you may be wondering why I'm giving 1 bonus point to the series. It's because my freaking GOAT did it. He became Hokage. And was I a little bit upset that he ended up with Hinata? Maybe. Maybe I didn't like Hinata that much because we never focused on her that much, if at all. And, you know, I was a little bit upset about it. Did I think he was going to end up with Sakura? No, but I kind of wanted a third love interest. Maybe that felt more appropriate. But it's fine. It's fine. I'm not upset about it. So I believe that overall, the story gets, as long as I have my numbers right, which I will do the math here, I believe it gets a crisp 9 out of 20. Which, for those of you who have been watching this series and have been continuing to support me, and I appreciate it so much more than you could ever know, that means that Naruto Shippuden is indeed mid. Thank you so much for watching, and I will hit you with a glorious adios. Now I know what you're all thinking. I forgot to talk about Obito, which I am sorry. I completely forgot that he was even in the series, so I'm going to give my quick little sum up of him as a villain and antagonist and also a character, and we'll see if it impacts the final score. Obito Uchiha, despite his tragic backstory and initial impact, ultimately falls short as a compelling villain in the grand scope of Naruto Shippuden. His motivations, driven largely by a misguided sense of loss and Madara's manipulation, feel less original and emotionally resonant compared to other antagonists in the series. While characters like Pain offer profound philosophical challenges to Naruto's ideals, Obito's goals, centered around the infinite Tsukiyomi and erasing reality, lack the same depth and nuance. His late-stage redemption also undermines his credibility as a lasting antagonist, making his journey more of a cautionary tale than a climactic confrontation it was built up to be. So overall, I don't really think Obito impacts the story in a positive light, and I will be holding my rating completely the same. Additionally, I will say, though, that his fight between Kakashi was one of the best in the series because of its simplicity and amazing choreography. So, thanks a ton! Oh, and also as for the openings, my favorite was the one, not Silhouette, but it was, I think it was the one where they were going to Killer Bee's village. I really enjoyed that one. I don't know why. I'll put it up on the screen for anybody who wants to know. And let me know how you think in the comments down below. Did I do a great job? Did I do a terrible one? Do you think I need to do something different? Please let me know. I always love hearing about it, and I will see you in the next one. Adios.